Everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
Hey David.
Welcome to the meetup.
Hello.
Just ask you to mute yourself for the moment and welcome with just 2 minutes for people to join in. And thanks for tuning in on this Wednesday night. And we're gonna start in 2 minutes. All right, so 20 people. So I guess a lot of people want to know how to secure their cryptocurrencies those days. So so if you want to interact during the presentation, please use the chat. We will see at the end how many people. So maybe we're gonna do the Q&A orally, but in the meantime, please actually use the chat, ask your questions during the presentations, and I will pick them out and ask it to our presenter. So welcome everyone to the Bangkok Blockchain Meetups. We have people actually joining from France those days, and it must be the afternoon. So this is actually 3 years almost that we are doing this every month, and we are picking up a topic which is trending or that people want to know more about. And today we are going to talk about something quite special. And I think this is the second biggest topic in cryptocurrencies after the price variations. We are going to talk about security. I guess for everyone, it has been a question for quite some time, and there are some ways to do it better. So today, we are going to invite a specialist of security, an expert of security with Guillaume, the founder and CEO of Atato. I will ask him to make an introduction of himself just after. But first, thanks for joining. If you have any questions, please use the chat for the people who just joined us. So let's just go in right now. And Guillaume, if you want to start about making an introduction and the topic of today.
Sure. So thanks everyone for joining. It's cool to be restarting those meetups in 2022. Hopefully we'll be able to do some of them face-to-face soon. So I'm Guillaume, I'm the founder of Atato. So it's a company that started in 2018, and there's a number of us on the call today. And it's good to see so many familiar faces from Asia and Europe, as Max mentioned. So welcome everyone. So a bit about myself. Basically, my background is in network security. So I started my job doing this back in 2007, and before that, I spent a lot of my childhood, probably too much time hacking stuff. And before starting Atato in 2017, I was the chief information officer for a company based in Bangkok, doing everything from information security to application development, infrastructure, etc. And Atato is a company that was previously a service provider in 2018, 19, and 20. Working with financial institutions, so like SCB, Bank of Thailand here in the country. And since 2021, we are building our own product that does something that's called wallet and custody. But briefly, you should know that it's like a B2B product that businesses can use to secure their crypto. We're not going to bore you with our marketing pitch today. The goal of this meetup is to kickstart a conversation on how to keep our shitcoins safe. Which, as Max mentioned, it's probably the second most frequent question that we get after which shitcoin I should be buying. So the goal today, is to kind of share some best practices to hopefully raise awareness on maybe things that you should do to keep your crypto safe. Hear also from you on what's your experience with those tools that we're going to mention, or if there's any particular technique that you use. And, in general, just kickstart some series of conversation around security. And so, we can get started.
One thing, Guillaume.
Do you want to wait?
Yeah, one thing that I would like to ask the people joining, like if you got hacked, if you had any questions regarding your use of wallet, please mentioning during the chat. It's supposed to be, an interactive conversation after Guillaume's presentation. So it's going to be in 2 parts, the meetup today. First, Guillaume is going to show you the best practice, short presentations, basically security 101 for cryptocurrencies, right? And then I prepare a setup of questions, but please bring yours. We're gonna ask you, and we're gonna talk about it a bit later today. So Guillaume, maybe you can start basically presenting, and I will interrupt you if there is questions coming up.
All right, awesome. Let's get to it. So, hopefully, with today's meetup, we're gonna avoid some losses. I guess if we can prevent 1 or 2 people who are attending today from losing their funds, I'm going to be very happy with that. So how to secure your crypto. I think a lot of people on the call probably have tokens. On Zoom there is this button to raise hands, so maybe we can do like a quick show of hands. Who's got tokens in there? You can click on the button to raise hand. So thank you, Norm, Marco. So yeah, quite a few of you. Ming also, thank you. So looks like a few of you have crypto. If you don't know how to click that button,
so. I can't say the bottom. Please say again. I don't see it.
So anyway, we're gonna get started. And Grid Plus, yeah, it's a cool wallet from Consensus, very active in 2019. So I might not answer all the questions immediately, but we're gonna get to all the questions on the chat. And yeah, let's just get started. So this is something that you might have seen before, CZ at Binance. It became a meme. These funds are Seifu, a time that Binance got hacked. Binance, probably the biggest crypto exchange today. Even then, it happens. So even to, the most professional people out there, it happens, sometimes hack. So our goal today is not to have any kind of perfect security, it doesn't exist, but it's just like to prevent the common mistakes and to raise your own security, maybe one or two steps. So what are we going to talk about? What's out there trying to steal your coins? So you have things like phishing. Maybe some of you have received like fake emails from somebody pretending to be BitCub or Coinbase or whatever exchange you're using. Maybe some of you indirectly or directly have suffered hacked. Maybe your MetaMask got hacked or whatever. Those things happen. Crypto.com just like yesterday, it was hacked. Another very big exchange. It happened to them too. And then there's scams also. So a bit different, but you should know that there are people trying to steal your crypto with you voluntarily sending it to them. So like the giveaways, I guess, is the most common one that you see. And today we're going to focus in particular on the two, the phishing and hacking, how to protect yourself against that and really losing your coins directly. So what do people do today? Like, where are your coins? So this is the first thing you should try to think about. So some people use hardware wallets. Some people leave their coins on exchanges. Some people have wallets in their browser. And there's kind of a variety of ways that people keep their coins today. The focus of today's call is not really going to be how do you secure your Binance or BitCub or ZipMex account. So our focus is more going to be like for people who want to use DeFi, who want to use NFT, who want to use dApps in general, and who typically need to have their own wallet. So, what this means to have your own wallet, it means that the coins are held by you, that you are directly responsible for your coins. So this is kind of the two big ways that people store their crypto, and I'm going to come back to it in a bit. But yeah, there's this wording that you might not have heard before, not your keys, not your coins. It's so popular that there's even mugs and t-shirts these days. What does it mean? You might have heard this before, you might wonder. So the basic idea is that if you leave your coin on an exchange, for example, the coins are actually held by the exchange. So you might have a login and a password to go and buy more and withdraw and deposit. But the person who can actually do something with your tokens is that exchange where you're keeping your funds. So you might be, using Binance or Coinbase or BitCub or some other, but what this means practically is that you don't have those funds. You have an account that lets you request to maybe move those funds. That's it. And it's going to be problematic if you want to do things like DeFi trading. For example, if you have some USDC and you want to lend it on Compound, it's going to be problematic if your funds are on an exchange. If you want to stake some tokens that you have, again, it's going to be problematic. So a lot of people who are interested in the DApp ecosystem, decentralized application, usually want to have control of their coins. So it means that they need to have control of the keys. So if you're not familiar with that concept, just keep in mind that if you don't have a wallet, if you're just relying on an exchange to hold your coins, it's going to limit you in some ways on what you can do with those coins. And today, the focus really is on those people who want to have control of their own keys to do DeFi and NFT and gaming and other blockchain applications. So for those people, what can you do? There are kind of different ways to secure your wallet, right? So some are very safe, some are not so safe, some are very easy to use, some are kind of a pain. So we're going to try to do a quick overview of what is out there, what are the ways that people can keep their crypto safe, and then share more about the way that we recommend at Atato. So what is it that you can do? Well, some people, they actually ask a friend, hey, can you go and buy some Bitcoin for me? It happens still, especially with people who are not familiar with the technology side of crypto. It still happens very often. It's not very safe because, you rely on your friend, and your friend, you don't even know how they are securing their crypto, right? So usually you trust someone who knows better than you, but keep in mind it's not super safe. It's not very practical. If you want to do anything with your coins, you're going to have to wait for your friend to be ready to do that. The other option is, if you leave your coin on some exchange that you found and you're not sure if they are, who they are they regulated, are they insured, are they governed properly? So, back in the day of companies like Poloniex, for example, the early days of crypto, for those who remember, this was the only option, keeping your coins on those exchanges. But those two options, they are really dangerous because if you work with an unregulated exchange, you have no guarantees that they're operating properly. They usually don't have insurance. If your coins are with your friends, it's the same idea. You don't know that it's operating properly or that it's going to be able to recover things that are lost. Another thing that's way more practical, but still very dangerous that I want to emphasize today is browser extension. So MetaMask, for example. If you are using MetaMask to keep your coins, you're basically relying on the security of your browser for the security of your crypto. I love MetaMask. I use it every day, but a bit in a different way, and we're going to come back to it. But you should know that if you are using MetaMask built-in wallet, with MetaMask private key, it's very risky. And browser hacks happen, and you might have other extensions on your browser that are going to go and steal your money or even virus on your computer. It's very, very risky. It's something that not many people know, so we wanted to bring it to your attention today. And it happens even to tech people, and to have your MetaMask hacked. It's something that unfortunately is very common. There are ways to use MetaMask in a secure manner. It's quite complex, but we're going to explain a bit how it works. And then you have the kind of safe but not very practical approach. So you might have some really hardcore blockchain friends who have what's called a paper wallet. So it's a wallet that's just some numbers on a piece of paper or a recovery seed on a piece of paper. And even the very, very hardcore ones, they have what's called brain wallets, so they don't even write it down. Or you might put your funds on a regulated exchange. So a company like ZipMex or BitCub, who's got a license from the government, who's doing things with some oversight and in some cases some insurance. Way better for security, not super practical. Like good luck using those tokens for any DeFi applications. In most cases, you simply can't. So that's kind of the situation that we are in today. I think all of you are probably familiar with the limitations of those different options. And so, of course, what we want to figure out together is, okay, how do we make it safe and practical? So you might have heard somebody telling you should get a hardware wallet, like a Trezor or a Ledger. This is usually what people recommend when they say, okay, keep your crypto safe. What we want to show here is that you can have a hardware wallet and mess it up and use it in a way that is not safe, because those things are quite difficult to use properly. And you can have a hardware wallet and do it properly and use it in a safe and practical way. It's not easy. It's not for everyone. That's why we need a meetup to go through how to do it properly. We're going to follow with a series of articles for people who want to go back to it. But it can be done, and that's what many of us do, right? And then, of course, what's the safe and practical and easy option? Stay tuned. We're going to share more on what's coming up with Atato. So overall, the recommendation, if you have all your tokens in the MetaMask right now, and the private key is actually with MetaMask, you should do something about it. If you care about that amount of money, you should do something about it right now. If you have your funds on an exchange, make sure it's regulated, that it has a license. It's better if it has insurance, like in Thailand, your funds with ZipMex are insured, for example. It's very good to know. And just keep in mind that if they're on an exchange, you're not going to be able to do much with your tokens. So you're kind of going to be missing out on DeFi and NFT and all the blockchain gaming stuff that's happening right now. And
Guillaume, maybe we can mention that actually a lot of people keep their money on the exchange because of trading, right? So if you use a centralized exchange, it's difficult to use MetaMask, and that might be a possibility to split the assets.
Yeah, exactly. So you might, of course, you need an exchange to do your trading. Crypto on ramp, off ramp, go and buy your coins, sell your coins. But nobody keeps their money on the stock exchange of Thailand. So you're gonna have to think about exchanges in a similar way, where it's just a marketplace where you execute your orders, but usually you don't leave your cash with the stock exchange of your country. Maybe you leave part of your money in there for day trading, but your long-term savings usually are in a bank. And so basically, the angle today is, where do I keep my money for either long-term or DeFi application? And so what we want to share today is like a series of best practices that have worked for us at Atato as a team, that we think can work for you, and try to share what we've learned and how to keep your crypto safe. Okay, so, and I'm just looking at the chat, and yeah, there's some fun conversation already. So overall, what are you gonna do? You must, if you want to secure your crypto, you must get a hardware wallet. You must use it in a way that keeps it safe, and you must use it with accounts that are safe. So we're going to go through it one by one, but the thing that we want people to understand overall is that it's not because you bought a ledger that you're good. If you want to use your ledger or Trezor properly, it's going to take a bit more than this. You're going to have to be careful about certain things. And if you take those precautions properly, you're going to be fine for 99.99% of cases. But if you don't take some precautions, even if you have a hardware wallet, you can still get all your money stolen. So there are some common pitfalls that we're going to share today, and give you tips on how to avoid them. And then, of course, if this sounds too cumbersome for you, stay tuned. Atato is solving that problem currently. So if you have a hardware wallet, maybe we can try another show of hands if people want to say, who's got a hardware wallet in there, who's got a ledger or nano.
Hello.
So Noam, you've got one. Looks like we have a few people with hardware wallets in there. So if you've got a hardware wallet, you probably know about what's called a recovery seed. So what's a recovery seed? It's basically your plan B if something goes wrong with your hardware wallet. If you buy a ledger and you lose it, it's broken, it's stolen, you still need a way to get access to your coins. What Ledger and Trezor provide you for that, it's called a recovery seed. So what is it? It's kind of a long password. And that password allows you to regain access to your hardware wallet on another device if you lose your device. It's a very, very important piece of information. because this recovery seed is basically your coins. If you have a hardware wallet, your coins are equivalent to that recovery seed. Whoever has the recovery seed has your coins.
And Guillaume, maybe you can explain that people often misunderstood that their coin is on their hardware wallet.
You're right. Yeah. So where are your coins practically? So the coins are not on the USB stick like a photo is on the USB stick. It's very different with a hardware wallet. When I have a USB stick and I put photos or video in there, if I take the USB stick somewhere else, my photos and my videos are safe. Nobody can access them. With blockchain, it's a bit different because anybody who has knowledge of the recovery seed has the ability to spend your coins. This is why it's mandatory, super important. I cannot stress enough that your recovery seed must never, ever touch a computer, a smartphone, a tablet, or anything connected to the internet. If you've done it and your recovery seed is on a Google Doc somewhere on your computer or some encrypted PDF or whatever, you need to get a new hardware wallet. Okay, it's not something that we are saying just for fun. It's like those hacks happen. People are writing software right now to kind of scan your computers to see if there is any recovery seed out there. And funds are getting stolen all the time. So your recovery seed must not ever touch anything connected to a computer.
So
if you have a hardware wallet, yeah, Max?
Just as an example, like what would be the best practice? I buy my ledger or my Trezor. I got my recovery seed. So what do I do with it?
Yeah, and so like David is saying, make sure you buy it from Trezor or you buy it from Ledger. Don't buy it on Shopee, don't buy it on eBay or whatever. Just buy it from the manufacturer. All manufacturers have ways for you to check that you bought an original device. Once you've got it, when you open the box, the hardware wallet is going to ask you to set up the wallet and write down your recovery seed. This is something that must be on pen and paper, or there are some other solutions, but not on the computer. And if you've done it before and you set up your hardware wallet already and you didn't know and the recovery seed is on your computer, you need to fix this and you need to fix this right now. So your recovery seed, the best way to do it is that it should be either in a safe if you have one, or better split into pieces in bank vaults. If you're really storing large amounts of money, what you must do is split your recovery seeds in a way that you don't need all the pieces to recover it. So for example, you can break down the words so that 2 out of 3 pieces can be used to recover the seed and put that in multiple bank vaults. And consider that things might happen and unplanned events might happen. So make sure that those vaults can be accessed even if you're not able to access them. Okay, so if you're looking at your savings for your retirement, you need to think really long term, and stuff can happen. So this might seem like, wow, those guys are crazy. This is way too much work. I'm just trying to have fun and invest a bit of money out there. So I guess here we're talking about people who are in there for long term, for significant parts of their savings, and who really want to take it seriously. Of course, if you're just trying to have fun with a few dollars, maybe you don't need to take all those precautions. But if you're looking at your crypto balance and you're starting to think, well, this is a lot of money, then maybe you should consider those things. And then using the hardware wallet is when you're going to make transactions. So let's say you have USDC, you want to lend them on Compound, or you want to do UST lending on Terra, whatever. What happens is that you're going to connect this device to a computer. Make sure that you have a PIN. I think Ledger and Trezor now force you to have a PIN, so you should have a PIN. What is the PIN, by the way? So the PIN exists only to protect the device itself. So what this means is that the PIN is just a way to unlock your hardware wallet, so that if you leave it on the table or something, somebody who doesn't have the PIN code cannot unlock your hardware wallet. It has nothing to do with your private key or how blockchain transactions happen. And then you must have also what's called a passphrase. So a passphrase, you can think of it as an extension of the recovery seed. It's just a way to add one more layer on top of your private key. So a passphrase is also a must. So if you have a hardware wallet already and you didn't set up a passphrase, you should really strongly consider setting up a new wallet with a passphrase and moving your tokens over. This is needed to prevent certain attacks against the wallet itself. So if somebody steals your device, for example, with Trezor, and there is no passphrase, they can steal your coins. And like Anthony is mentioning, just connect it only when you need to make a transaction. That device should not stay connected to your computer all the time. You may put the PIN and the passphrase in a password manager for those devices. I think it's an acceptable risk. And the PIN and the passphrase, keep in mind, they are different things. The passphrase is involved in the transaction. When you make a blockchain transaction, if you want, the passphrase is involved in the signing of that transaction. The PIN is totally different. The PIN is just there to unlock your device. That's it. Okay? So if one day you need to recover your funds, you're going to need the recovery seed and the passphrase. Okay? So consider also the bus factor for your passphrase. If something happens to you, people are going to need that passphrase to recover your funds. Okay? So if you're using a hardware wallet, to recap, recovery seed and passphrase, this is what you need to recover your wallet. Recovery seed never, ever touches a computer. If it did, get it fixed. Set up a new wallet with different recovery seed and a passphrase. And PIN code is less important. It's just about unlocking the device. Okay, so that's like the best practice on using hardware wallets. Now, what's important to realize is that it's not all that there is to securing your crypto. So like Max mentioned, you're going to have some long-term storage on your hardware wallet, and you're always going to have a bit of money on an exchange also, maybe temporarily, maybe for your trading. So there are other things that you should consider, but this is kind of the best practice for your hardware wallet itself. What you need to consider while you're using your crypto overall is that don't do it from like the phone that you use to download video games from BitTorrent and from a browser that is full of random extensions that you've installed over the years. So instead, what you must do is, if you're really serious, you should consider having a dedicated laptop only for crypto. It might not be feasible for everyone, so just make sure that at least your computer is up to date, that you have an antivirus with scanning updates also, and never install untrusted software on that computer. If you installed a bunch of games over the years on the computer you use for crypto, you should just reset it and reinstall everything on it, because you never know what comes on those things that you get from BitTorrent, or usually they are loaded with malware, unfortunately, and so more and more those malware are looking to steal your coins. And don't install some random freeware that you've heard of from some guy that you don't know exactly what it is. Because sometimes there are actual software that actually do real things, like utility to resize a picture or convert a video, for example, typical example. They actually do the stuff that they're supposed to do, but they're also loaded with malware. So be careful on your crypto laptop to install software only from marketplaces like the Play Store or the iOS Store or the Microsoft Store. Do not install unsigned software on those laptops. Again, you're going to think, wow, this is too much, those people are crazy. But if you're really serious about securing your laptop, your crypto, sorry, this is what you must do. And then your browser, also keep in mind that browsers get hacked. And on the browser that you use to do your crypto activity, you should have a separate browser. So if you have one laptop, separate it from your everyday browser. So maybe you do your browsing in Chrome and you use Firefox for your crypto stuff. Do not put any add-on in there. Do not enable any safe password in there. And just have a browser clean with maybe just MetaMask, for example, in it. And that's it.
One thing that we should mention, you might think that this is a bit too much and that it's a too high level of security. You can't imagine the amount of people that are coming to us and saying, oh, I lost my tokens, I got hacked, I don't understand how, I'm using a hardware wallet. It's because of all the things that Guillaume just explained. So the wait that you have a lot of crypto building up on your accounts doesn't happen with one Ether or 0.1 Bitcoin. But the moment you start adding wealth, some random stuff can happen. You get stole of all your assets. So it's not something uncommon.
Unfortunately, we are sharing this today because those things happen all the time, as Max mentioned, and with the amount of interest for blockchain in general today, more and more people are super excited, putting in lots of money without really having solid foundation on keeping everything safe. So what's next then? So this computer that you're going to use it to buy and sell stuff on exchanges. So you need to consider those accounts also. So the number one recommendation that I have for everyone here is, use a password manager and use it seriously. So Android has one, iOS has one, they're free. What's important for a password manager is two things. So have unique passwords for anything that is remotely important. For example, your email, your bank, your crypto must have unique passwords. Do not reuse the same password for, email and bank or bank and crypto. Do not do that. Those passwords should be long. Don't worry too much about the random characters and stuff. Just make it very, very long. The safest password, if you can make it, is just a phrase. Something like, my wife's name is XYZ, and we met in that day on that place, and we did that. Something easy to remember, very long, that nobody else would know. And make sure, I know it's a bit a pain, but if you are reusing the same password today, change it. And I know it's going to be a bit painful. If you are reusing the same password for your email, your bank, your crypto, or anything remotely important like a social network, change it. Make sure it's unique. Make sure it's in a password manager. And I know it's a pain, but if you do it, you're going to really up one level on your security and use 2FA systematically. Your email, your bank, your crypto must have 2FA. A common way that hackers get into systems, is they're not going to hack the exchange, but they're either going to hack your account with the exchange or your email. If they hack your email, they can just reset your accounts to regain access to your account on the exchange. So you have to think of security as a chain. There is your hardware wallet, then there is the account that you use with it, then there is the email that you use with those accounts. And all of that should be secured with really very strong precaution. Password manager, so there's a lot. Bitwarden and KeePass are free. Dashlane, LastPass, probably the two most well-known paid password managers. There's one on your smartphone, whatever smartphone you have in your pocket. So research a bit, password manager, see what you have already and use it. And reset those passwords. Let the password manager generate very long ones. And it takes a bit of effort, but you're going to see very, very strong benefits. Because, usually hackers are going to try to steal money. They're not going to go after the complex targets. They're going to go after people who made a few mistakes on their security because that's the low-hanging fruit, and there is still a lot of money to make there. So if you do those things that we talk about in the meetup, things can still happen. Nobody, is completely protected from hacks, but you're not going to be an easy target, and 99% of what happens is not going to affect you.
So for one question in the chat, what is the best password manager? The four that Guillaume mentioned just before, you can choose any of them.
Yeah, all of them are pretty good. Like Max is saying, Dashlane and LastPass, probably the two that I would recommend, given that they allow you to use multiple devices and that they are backed by professional support. They are quite cheap. It might be like $50 a year, something like that for those password managers. And just get it up and running, reset all your password, book maybe an hour or half a day, and just get it done. It's a bit painful, but it's super important in this day and age to do it, not just for crypto, but for your own security in general. And authenticator, so 2FA, you must use 2FA for anything that has something to do with money. And so what this means is that you should use an authenticator app. if you're serious about 2FA, I recommend you use OT and not Google Authenticator, AUTHY, because it has some recovery features that are nice if you lose your phone. You must not use SMS. It's not a serious 2FA. Unfortunately, many
banks
and other services still rely on 2FA on SMS, sorry, for 2FA. It's not safe. You should know that SMS can be intercepted, and this is another way that attackers get into your systems. So they can just pretend to be your number for a while, get your SMS for resetting your password or whatever. So it's not a serious 2FA method. If you must use it, for example, with your bank, you have no choice. One precaution you should do at least is you call AIS or whoever you're using, and you ask them to set up a password on your account itself, separate from the SIM pin. It's just a password on your account with AIS or DTAC or whoever. Just keep in mind, Google Authenticator, OT, those are proper 2FA. SMS is not a safe 2FA. Even worse, some people use email for 2FA, where you get an email and you click on a confirmation email. This is very bad. So avoid those services. So, keep in mind that it's about having a hardware wallet. It's about having a secure computer and browser to use it. And it's about securing all the chain of, what is associated with your crypto. So if you have an account with Binance and you log in with your Gmail, your Binance account should be secure with 2FA with a unique password. Your Gmail account should be secure with 2FA with a unique password. You need to think about it from the perspective of the attacker who's looking for ways to get into your assets. And to recap, there's quite a lot that we talked about today. So you need to get a hardware wallet. I see some questions in the chat. We're going to get to them. You need to do it from a secure computer. You need to do it from a secure browser. You need to secure your accounts. You need to get a password manager, an authenticator, reset all the password, and enable 2FA where you don't have it done properly yet. And then finally, you can buy your shitcoin and hold them or train them or whatever. Of course, if you're just looking to learn and you put $10, $100, you're ready to lose it, sure. Maybe you don't need all of that. But if your crypto is becoming a significant part of your net worth, you should take those precautions. And if you don't want to do it and it's too much trouble, at the very least, put it on an exchange that has insurance. So it's a lot of work, and some of it is quite technical. What you can do also, just wait for Atato wallet. It's coming up. If you want to learn more about Atato wallet, you can scan this QR code, and we're going to share more as we progress on it. But if you want to register on our waitlist, this is the QR code to do it. And that might have been a lot, what we just went through in just 30 minutes. So keep in mind that the video is going to be on YouTube. There's going to be an article version. And of course, we're going to take a break and look at the Q&A on the chat.
Yeah.
You want to do the questions? I do the answer, Max? Or?
Yeah, I would take the chat first, and let me just recap. I see from the beginning. I will not take the question on the wife that is buying the bags, but we have a questions about Tail OS. Let's say I keep seed on Tail OS or flash drive. Only plug it to boost it up just to do stuff. I'm not sure if it's a question itself.
Yeah, so Anthony is he's sharing a way to on the secure computer stuff, right? So when it comes to using a secure computer, and he's saying you can just boot your computer on a different operating system. So if you have Windows on your computer, you can boot it on a different operating system. So Tail OS is a famous tool to do that. And he's saying I keep it on a flash drive. Why not? Just know, Anthony, that you're taking a risk because that flash drive can be hacked from the other OS. And unfortunately, those are things that are happening now, and hackers are keeping exploit on Windows. So if your drive is sometimes plugged on Windows, even by accident, you're at risk there. So if it's a laptop that you only use for that, and that this laptop is only used for Tails OS, why not? If it's like multi-boot, I wouldn't recommend it.
And second questions, and I think it's related to the passphrase. Do hard wallets have 2FA?
Not that I know of. It's a good question. So, to my knowledge, Ledger and Trezor do not have 2FA. It's a good idea, but to my knowledge, it doesn't exist today. The only kind of second factor, if you want, is just clicking the button to approve the transaction, but there is no authentication there.
And there is a question from Tachman, which is, I think, important when you want to participate to some of dApps, decentralized application, is that how to manage wallet like cold and hot wallet, like basically how to work with the hardware wallet and MetaMask.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So, the general answer I would have is get 2 hardware wallets. I know it's going to sound weird, but if you're really serious about securing your crypto, you should consider having a cold hardware wallet and a hot hardware wallet. One way to do it without buying 2 devices is just to have 2 different passphrases. So when you connect your hardware wallet, you're going to have one passphrase that's going to be used for cold and a separate passphrase for hot if you don't want to get 2 devices. I wouldn't recommend doing the cold wallet with a browser extension wallet like MetaMask, a hot wallet with browser extension like MetaMask, because there can still be significant amount of money in there, and hackers are fine with stealing $1,000, unfortunately. So, I would say get 2 hardware wallets. If you can't afford it, get one with 2 passphrases.
All right, thank you. And Kunamarit, yes, you should always buy your hardware wallet from the source, never from a reseller.
Yeah.
And question from Kunatawat, if banking service use SMS 2FA with no authenticator options, is it safer to set a PIN on your SMS card?
So it's a good idea. Unfortunately, it's not really safer. So what the PIN does is just like unlocking the card, the physical card itself. If you want to secure a bit your account against mobile account hijack, what you should do instead is asking your operator to have a password on your account. This way, if somebody wants to issue a SIM card for your number, for your identity, they would need not only a copy of your passport and a fake proof of a power of attorney, but they would also need knowledge of that password, and they won't be able to reissue a SIM card without it. So it's a bit better. But just know that, despite everything you do, somebody who is physically close to you can intercept your SMS. And unfortunately, those attacks happen.
All right, I would take a question from David that actually he asked me before, but how to prevent MetaMask getting drained by trading a malicious shitcoin. And that I think it's one of the most common issues with people using MetaMask.
Yeah, so what MetaMask lets you do is a great software. We've been telling lots of bad things about MetaMask, but it's a great software. But MetaMask lets you do 2 kind of scenarios. You can either use the built-in wallet of MetaMask to store your coins. So this is the default. When you install MetaMask, it's going to ask you to back up a recovery passphrase, etc. Don't do that. Don't use that. Instead, what you must do is use MetaMask with a hardware wallet. So in MetaMask, you're going to go to account, connect an account, and then you can connect a hardware wallet. If you do this, the private key that is associated with your coins, it's not going to touch the internet, and so you're going to get to a whole other degree of protection. So don't use the built-in wallet of MetaMask. Just use it as an interface for your hardware wallet if you want.
All right, and I think. Yeah, one of the most questions is that, well, frankly, your stuff, Guillaume, is cool, but it's way too complicated. I prefer to have my coins on an exchange. They take care of the security, but then what are my limitations?
Yeah, so, if this seems way too much for you, we understand. What's the better option that's safe but not super practical for some things is to keep your funds on a regulated exchange. So go to your local country financial authority's website and check who's got a license. So in Thailand, for example, if you put your funds on ZipMax, it's a proper company, properly operated, licensed, certified, etc., and they have insurance for your funds. So if something happens to them, you're going to be reimbursed the equivalent fiat amount, which is very important. if you don't know what you're doing, maybe this is the better way to do it. The problem, if you do that, is that you're not going to be able to join the fun on DeFi, NFT, play to earn, or everything that's happening with decentralized application in general. So you're going to be missing out on a lot of earnings potential for sure. So it's just less risky but less return, I guess, right? But if you're willing to do the time and effort to learn about how to secure your crypto, then you're going to have a lot more opportunities in terms of what to do with your money, or gaming or art or collectible. And then, of course, we understand that this is a pain, and that's something that we're working on, and we're going to have more announcements in the coming months.
Right, and I guess we need to make a parallel on the traditional IT finance side, right? Frankly, it's been 5 years that blockchain is a bit mainstream, right? And you are coming from the background of traditional IT security. So how did the traditional finance/IT department manage to solve the securities problems with transactions? Is it something that we can learn from there? And this is something about the infrastructure that is not ready? Or what do you think about it?
Yeah, so it's a very good point, is that people have been doing information security for a while now. So if you use a credit card anytime in the past 20 years, you've benefited from information security. If you've made an online purchase, same. So professionals know how to do it. So this is why if you're working with a regulated exchange, usually they are using what's called a custodian. So it means that they kind of delegate the job of securing transactions to another company who's doing that, and that's their business. By the way, this is what Atato is doing. So usually it's actually mandated by the regulation. So in Thailand, for example, the SEC mandates exchanges and brokers to, so that there is this kind of segregation of duties between the trader and the safekeeper of the asset, if you want. There are some ways to actually keep stuff secure, right? So in general, it's around regulation, having some oversight from a financial regulator. It's around certification and best practices, so things like ISO certification, SOC 2 certifications. And it's around audit also, internal and external audits. And the last degree of protection, if you want, is insurance. And so you have to think about it like an onion, with different layers that each do their own thing, and that together enable a secure service. But for sure, it's a big machine, more for businesses to use.
And it's related to Michael's questions, right? Any idea how large exchanges keep their private key secure? HSM, hot, cold wallet, smart contract, any kind of information or point of view from an exchange standpoint?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Michael. So the hot and cold wallet, so what does it mean for people who are not familiar with it? So usually the idea is that if you're a business operating many wallets, you're going to kind of separate funds that are moving. So for example, deposit and withdrawal that your clients make, and you're going to separate the long-term storage of large amounts of money. And so usually you have different systems that you use for those two goals. So you have one system where you must move money quickly, frequently, and you have another system where you must keep large amounts of money for a very long time and keep it very, very safe. So for example, the crypto.com hack that happened yesterday was part of their hot wallet infrastructure. So part of cryptos.com hot wallet infrastructure was hacked. I think they lost like 5,000 Ether or something. And then, the bulk of their money, probably tens or hundreds of thousands of Ether is in cold wallet, which is way more secure and was not hacked. So that's how exchanges kind of deal with the risk of storing large amounts of crypto. And then usually cold wallet is insured. Sometimes hot wallet is insured also. I think that was the case for crypto.com. And then there's the second part of Michael's question around the key management. So there are different ways to keep private keys secure. The one we personally like more at Atato is something that's called MPC. It's a bit technical, but if you're interested, check out the MPC Alliance. And then HSM and smart contracts, they were kind of older technologies which had merits at the time, but it's not something that you should look at right now, in my opinion.
All right, thanks. But So if I recap what you mentioned about like people who wants to keep large amount of cryptocurrencies, I mean, maybe a company, right? Businesses start receiving some payment in crypto, or wants a part of their cash reserve in cryptocurrencies. So do they use MetaMask? Do they use a hardware wallet, or how do they do that?
So it's a very good question. That's another problem for, for an individual, you can do what you want. There's nobody like telling you what kind of wallet you can use. For a business, it's different. Businesses, are subject to regulation, and just like exchanges and brokers must work with a custodian, other types of businesses must also work with businesses. So usually, if you're a business, you're going to go and talk to a custodian. So for example, I don't know, if you're a company doing real estate and more of your clients are taking crypto payments, for example, you might at some point hold some crypto for your commissions. So if you do this as a company, you want to have things like segregation of duty, maker-checker principles. So, the idea that somebody is drafting a transaction and somebody is checking it, and maybe another person even is approving it. And so it's not something that you can do even with a hardware wallet. One of the limitations of today's wallet is that if you use a ledger and you click OK on the device, that's it. Your transaction goes out. There are some ways around it, but they are very complex using smart contracts. So what businesses do usually instead is that they go to custodians and they sign up with custodians like Atato. That's in particular the kind of clients that we serve. And those custodians help them access DeFi securely.
So, but custodians, all right, it's a company which is regulated, just for people to understand and what is the features that we offer.
Yeah, right. So a custodian, it's a company whose business it is to keep coins safe for others. So it's a financial service. So custodians have a license. So for example, at Atato, we are licensed by the Hong Kong Financial Authority to provide digital asset custody. There are other custodians in other countries under other regulatory environments. And then custodians, it's their business to keep stuff safe. So usually they are certified, they are audited. Usually there is insurance involved also. And you can think of them kind of like a vault, if you want to keep some expensive jewelry, you can build a safe in your room, and fire suppression and whatever, but you're probably not going to do it and just put it in a bank vault. So think of custodians kind of like vaults for your crypto. And some of them, like us, still let you access DeFi so that you can do something actually with your token.
Thanks. And just maybe to finish on that part, if you want to extend, because we talked about MetaMask, hardware wallet, the pain points of using both. Talk about custodians, which we hear about custodians just for big exchange, for large banks. So how Atato try to fit into that market?
Yeah, so our view is that if we want my mom to use blockchain, she's not going to use the hardware wallet the way I described just now. So our view is that if we want blockchain adoption to get to the next level, to get out of the 100 million users and to get into the 1 billion users, we need to think about the way we do wallets differently. And for us, this means having wallets that have a custodian behind, that have a license, audited, certified, regulated company behind, because what I described on the hardware wallet is nice and all. And if you're a tech person, you're going to be able to do it. If you're a non-tech person, it's very difficult. And even if you know what you're doing, when things break or problems happen, you're on your own. So our view is that, to make a blockchain grow and to bring adoption to the next level, the management of wallets and custody should be done by companies that are dedicated to it. And I love MetaMask. I use it every day. But I think it's a product for engineers, like many of us on the call, and it's not a product that's going to enable blockchain to get to 1 billion users.
Okay, and thanks for sharing. And I just would like to come back to one point, because actually this has been asked by a lot of, unfortunately, friends who got hacked. Something they went on the NFT platform, they went on the Launchpad, they went on Telegram, and they got hacked that way. in case it happens, any last resort, like bottle in the oceans that you can do with the community on Reddit and so on? Can you share what would be the last?
So if you get hacked, I feel for you. First, you should know that there are people who are like bounty hunters who hack the hackers. That's an option. You're gonna have to pay a lot of money, a big commission to them, but really this is kind of your last resort. Some of them are very successful. There's no guarantee. Usually there's no upfront payment either, so you don't have much to lose. How to find those bounty hunters? Usually you find them on Reddit. You will see often posts of people asking for help on /Ethereum, for example. So if it happened to you, you might want to try it. You're gonna need a certain amount of money to make it attractive for them. So, 100K US plus. But if it happened to you, this is an option. Below that, sorry, you're on your own. I don't want to sugarcoat it. So usually, just your funds are lost. So this is why you should take proper precautions. And I see a few questions in the chat, Max. If you want to take that.
So the one on airdrops, I think it's important because some people will get lucky. So is it safe?
So it's a very good question. So airdrops, what are they? It's people telling you, hey, do you want free tokens in general? So usually it's a way to kickstart a project, for example, to incentivize people to take a look at it. There are roughly two kinds of airdrops. So there is the kind of airdrop where you just declare your wallet address to them and they send you the token. Those are safe as long as you're not making any blockchain transaction and you're just telling them, this is my wallet address, please give me money. Usually it's safe. Don't disclose any personal information, like if they ask you a name and a passport and things on top of your address, you might want to check who's behind the project, and here it's really case by case. So that's the kind of only orange flag that you would have if they send you the token. And then you have some kind of airdrops where you need to do something to get the tokens. There's a different way to do it where you have to kind of claim your airdrop and you need to make a blockchain transaction for that. I would avoid those in general unless you really know what's the project and what's going on.
Okay.
For airdrops, yeah.
Thanks. And question as well on MetaMask. Does having multiple accounts on MetaMask help with security?
So if it's an account that's on a hardware wallet, yes. So for example, if you have a hardware wallet with two passphrases, a hot and a cold, you're going to have two accounts on MetaMask. Yes, this helps for security. If those are just different accounts with different private keys stored in MetaMask, no, it doesn't really help.
All right. Clear. And I think I went to.
There's one from David on the browser profile, right? So some browsers allow you to have kind of like different profiles. So it's a good idea, but unfortunately, it doesn't help. If you have a profile that gets compromised, the other profiles can be compromised too, unfortunately.
All right, please feel free to ask your questions. And in the meantime, if we wait for the last question, we have been in this space for quite some time, right? And frankly, we feel that it doesn't evolve. MetaMask has been here for quite some time. We are still using it. Same issues happening. So how do you see like the security and blockchain market goes, in the next 5 years, let's say?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So, some of us who listen today might feel that we're bashing MetaMask. I think blockchain would not be where it is today without MetaMask and the great team and the amazing delivery.
Now, the one point is that we mentioned MetaMask because there is 40 million users of MetaMask. It's the largest one, so that's why it's always mentioned.
So, it's just that it's coming from maybe 2015, right? So it was like the early days of Ethereum and people were fed up with Mist at the time. And so some people were thinking, hey, why not put it in a browser? So it's just coming from a different world. So in the meantime, security has advanced and the way we can do crypto security and key management has advanced. And so there was a very interesting read from Vitalik early last year about the need for what's called social recovery. So if you're curious, you can look up his blog, Ethereum.org, if I remember, why we need social recovery wallet. So what's social recovery wallet? It's just a way to have a wallet without a private key. this might seem a bit confusing, but it's the idea of instead of having a recovery seed that's somewhere on a bank that you must take lots of precaution to keep safe. You have this idea of wallet administrators who can help you regain access if you lose your device, your password, or access to your wallet in general. So this is kind of a new concept, which is much more user-friendly. The user experience for recovery is way better because you just ask your friend, hey, or your wife, your mom, people you trust, or devices you trust to regain access to your wallet. Unfortunately, there are very few products out there who support it. But as you can imagine, it's something we're looking at Atato. So what does it mean in the next 5 years? Just like we see already, I think we're going to see institutions take a bigger role in wallets in general. So there's been announcements from banks like Sicorn, SCB, Kongsri, all of them are looking at crypto custody. Many banks in Europe do it already. So I think we're going to see banks, take that role. Naturally, this is what they've been doing for, equity and other assets like cash in the past. So I think this is going to be an option. How are they going to deal with, still letting you connect to DeFi and NFT? I think this is going to be a big pain point. So I'm not sure that this is going to be a long-term solution. Personally, and at Atato, what we think is that in the next 5 years, we're going to see wallets and custodian take a bigger role in the security ecosystem of blockchain. Because if you already want to do something with your tokens and your blockchain, you need to have control of your keys. If you want to do DeFi, NFT, play to earn gaming, you need to have a direct control of your keys. And that's not really possible if you're working with an intermediary, be it an exchange, a broker, or a bank who's gotten a license. So our view is that if we want to keep blockchain decentralized, and if we want to keep the benefits of decentralized applications that we see exploding in the past 3 years, we need to have this centralized wallet where people have control of their key, and that infrastructure is what we call custody. And our view is that wallets should be custodial, so that my mom and all the crypto newbies can really use it. So,
but that's the opposite of the general idea of blockchain, not your keys, not your coins. So how does it fit into that?
Yeah, it's a good question. How do we reconcile the two? So on the tech side, there are some ways to reconcile the two ideas, where it's your keys, but also the benefit of a licensed, secured, and audited custodian. It's kind of our secret sauce, so I can't share too much about how it's done, but you should know that it's possible to reconcile the two worlds of it's my keys, it's my coin, but there's also somebody who's managing them securely for me. And I can trust them to set up their security properly. And if something goes wrong, they are insured also.
All right, thanks for sharing. And we have a question from Simon. Is there any difference in security with the MetaMask app on mobile device compared to the browser extension?
Yeah, so the big difference, to my knowledge, I don't think you can use MetaMask on mobile yet with hardware wallet. So, for me, that's a deal breaker. Unfortunately, because of course, using it on mobile would be awesome, but unfortunately, right now, DeFi, NFT, and crypto gaming is still a laptop thing. So hopefully, we're going to see that being added at some point.
All right, I think we went through a lot already today. I got some message on private saying that people were thanking the meetup because they didn't know that hardware wallet could have a passphrase. And I think that's one of the main issues as people get hacked, is because they believe that the PIN is sufficient. So yeah, and some other message.
If you don't have a passphrase, just to explain what this means, it means that a hacker who has your device has your funds, in particular with Trezor. So it's a big deal. And it means that somebody who has your PIN code can do whatever they want with your crypto also. So if your PIN code is your birth date, or your credit card code or something that people know, keep in mind that you must use a passphrase, otherwise you're vulnerable to very simple attacks.
And if you go on Ledger or Trezor, it's basically explain how to set up your passphrase. Just go on their website.
Yeah.
There's an explanation there.
So if you're interested in getting a hardware wallet, just Google to make sure that you're buying directly from Trezor or from Ledger. It's going to take some time. Yeah, shipping is going to take a few days. You might have to pay some custom duties. Yes, but this is the safe way to do it. Yeah, just keep in mind your recovery seed or your paper wallet is your coins. So anybody who has knowledge of that plus your passphrase has your coins. So it must not ever touch a computer, and you need to be very careful with that. And this is a way that some people get hacked. They buy a hardware wallet, they're not careful with the recovery seed, and then one day they're like, my coins are gone. How is that possible? I thought I had a hardware wallet. Well, if you're not careful with the recovery seed, you don't have anything better than a browser wallet, unfortunately. So it might be a lot of information to take in.
Yes.
It's kind of a technical one, this meetup. So of course, the recording is going to be on YouTube. There's going to be an article version to follow. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you're not sure what you're doing. And there's also regular meetups. If you want to ask more questions, don't hesitate. We're always happy. And I hope this year we're going to be able to do face-to-face meetup again.
Hopefully it's going to be a first since last one was in December 2021. Yeah, maybe. And but thanks a lot, Guillaume, for the presentations. And it's a lot, but you can watch it on Facebook and YouTube. It's already live. And again, in the coming days, by paper, we will share it with the people attending. And one thing that we should mention at Atato, we are growing. There is a lot of positions which are opening in the tech side, on the marketings and sales. So if you're looking to work into blockchain, and please reach out to us. You can go to www.atato.com or on a Facebook page, or contact us on LinkedIn.
Or email at careers@atato.com. You should know that we offer work from anywhere. We've been working remotely since 2018. We have no working hours. We have no maximum number of holidays. We have a minimum number of holidays that you must take instead. So if you like freedom and blockchain, come and join us. Happy to talk to you.
All right, and yeah, but thanks again for joining. It's a bit more than 1 hour, but we have some great questions. I hope you learned something. That's the whole goal of those meetups. Thanks a lot, Guillaume, for the presentation and taking the time. And thank you all for your questions. We see you next month for another topic and related to decentralized finance.
So, and keep your shitcoin safe.
Yes, that's the last word of the night. Thank you for people joining from France and everywhere. I appreciate you showing up. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Salut.